Good morning. This is Dwayne, and today I'd like to talk about goal-oriented practice, practicing with specific goals in mind using the spaced repetition method. For years, I owned a piano studio called Piano University and taught hundreds of people in person, at least hundreds, and then thousands through a program that I called Pros in Progress, where I would send that person a stack of books and then record a lesson on cassette. And they would listen to my cassette and then practice methodically through those books that I sent them. And then when they were ready at the end of the month or so, they'd send it back. And I'd listen to that and we'd repeat the process, and it worked very, very well. I remember one particular guy, he was a retired, he always wanted to play the piano. And he worked for Southern Pacific all his life, and he retired at 65. And he wanted to take up the piano. So he asked me if he was too old, and I said, absolutely not. And so he started right from square one. I mean, he didn't know where anything was, middle C. And by the time he finished taking piano lessons at about 75, I guess he took for about 10 years, he could play most anything. He could play pop songs, classical pieces, and so on. And of course, he was sloppy because his fingers, he hadn't grown up playing the piano, but still it was satisfying to him because he could do all that. So I want to talk about how you get results like that. In the first place, you need a method. If you don't have a teacher, you need to get a teacher of some sort, okay? And that teacher has to have a method in mind. I always used a series of books by James Bastian. Not always, but I usually use that. This is an old book. You can see it's well used. All my stuff is well used here. But the advantage of a method book is it takes you methodically through things you need to know. For example, the first unit is about bass styles, using the broken bass and the waltz bass and so on. And then you get into syncopation and minor chords and how to use minor chords and triplets and intervals and chord names and so on and so forth. So I'd like to talk about how to practice. When you practice, you need to use the principle of spaced repetition. That is, if you have an hour to practice, don't practice straight through that hour. It's far better to break it up into two or I prefer 3 sessions of like 20 minutes each, okay? Why? Well, because you can only concentrate so much, so long, and your seat gets tired too. So practice for 20 minutes and do something else and come back for 20 minutes. And you may say, well, I can't do that. Well, do the best you can then, but at least break up the practice, okay? And when you practice, you need to practice by phrases. For example, let's say that I'm playing this beginning song here in the book called Juanita, okay? And it shows both hands, bass and treble. Don't try both hands at once. Just try one hand, play one hand. First time, just get the notes right. Second time, make sure you get the rhythm right. 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2. Third time, make sure you get the fingering right. And it gives the fingering there, and so on, okay? And only after you do that, then you do the left hand. And only after you've mastered each hand alone for that one phrase, then put them together slowly. One reason I like the Bastian method is because the chord symbols are above the line. I mean, you probably can't see that, but the chord symbols are above the treble clef there. And so I taught not only how to read music, how to play it as written, but how to add chords to it. So after they could play it as written, then they start out by playing the chord and holding it like that. And then maybe breaking up the left-hand chord into single notes. And then eventually maybe the Alberti bass. And then eventually maybe a swing bass. And then I'd show them how to put chords in the right hand. Until they could play that first phrase, excuse me, quite well. And so you want to use that spaced repetition, goal-oriented spaced repetition, excuse me, I'm choked up here, to get to master each phrase and then to understand the chord structure as you go, okay? Then as that's one part of the assignment. Then I would always have a technique assignment. And I usually used a Hannon book. It's called The Virtuoso Pianist. This is book 2, but they would start out with book 1, of course. And Hannon gives exercises, finger exercises. You get your fingers in shape. So I'd always instruct them how to place their hands on the keyboard, so in a nice curved position and so on. And then they'd play this exercise, both hands playing the same thing. Very orderly and methodically, not fast at all. It's first very slowly. And then later I would have them play staccato. And then later on I have them play it syncopated. And later on I'd have them play chords in the left hand while they played that in the right hand. And so on. So you'd build up gradually, understanding how things work while getting your fingers in shape. Okay? So that would be the second element. Then the third element would be to work out of some book, like a classical book of some sort. This is Piano Literature, Volume 1. And let's say they were playing Echo, say, in G, say. Instead of playing right off the bat, I'd have them practice slowly. Hands alone and then together. And then we'd master the accents, not just the notes, but the accents, you know. There's some notes that are accented more than others. Listen to this. And that's important in music, dynamics and accents, because it makes it come to life. So we'd work through a book like that has classical music. This is book 2 and goes through book 4. So we'd work all the way through book 4. Gets pretty advanced. And then we work on some sort of popular songs, more than one usually, but I had them work through a fake book like this. This is called Professional Chord Changes and Chord Substitutions. And if they were playing The Day of Wine and Roses, I might assign it, this is, you know, after they're a little bit more advanced, but I'd assign it like this. Then I teach them how to echo a melody. Then I teach them how to break up a chord going up the keyboard. Pretty sloppy, huh? Then I teach them how to block chords. You see, you just take it step by step and you can get to where you want to go. It's not automatic, it's not necessarily easy, but it's fun. If you're accomplishing something each hour you practice, each day you practice, then you feel that accomplishment. You feel like your fingers are getting better. You feel like you're understanding things and so on. So my argument is to use spaced repetition in your practicing. Don't practice all at once. Spread it out. And then practice very methodically and orderly. Don't skip around at all, but you know, take what's assigned and learn it right hand, left hand. Practice slow until you get it. Learn the chords, understand the chords, and so on. So that's my advice, and it got results for me and my students. So that's it for today. If you enjoy this sort of thing, come on over to playpiano.com, and you usually won't get a sermon like this, but you get some piano tips of various sorts that I think you'll enjoy. So bye-bye for now.